Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2018 Whatcom County Council's Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee's listening tour. This is the last one. It's number 7. We started out with your neighbors down in Deming, and we went to Linden, we went to Ferndale, went to Sudden Valley. We had one in the Whatcom County Courthouse, had one in Fairhaven, and our final one is here tonight, and we're really glad to see you all have come out tonight on a beautiful summer evening. I guess we'll just go ahead and start and run the video. That pretty much will go over the kind of the timeline and the history of where we are and where we come from, and then we will get started. So go ahead, David. Hello, everyone. I'm Barry Buchanan, Chair of the Whatcom County Council's Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, and I want to welcome you to the 2018 listening tour. We're reaching out to residents of Whatcom County to get your thoughts on our criminal justice system. Tonight, we will present an overview of where we are today and a timeline of events leading up to now. However, the main focus of tonight's meeting is to gather your input, so let's get started. The Whatcom County Jail was built in 1949 and until 1983 was located on the 6th floor of the county courthouse. In the early 80s, the State Jail Commission funded construction of the current correctional facility located next to the courthouse in downtown Bellingham, and the jail was completed and occupied in 1984. Over the next 2 decades, the county took numerous steps to enhance its criminal justice system, including creation of a jail alternatives program, establishment of a law and justice council, establishment of a blue ribbon panel on criminal justice and public safety needs, establishment of a drug court, expansion of the jail alternatives program and facility to include more beds and divert more offenders from full custody, adoption of an ordinance imposing 0.1% sales tax for criminal justice purposes, and passage of a voter-approved sales tax increase of 0.1% with part of the funding proposed for a new jail project and part for construction and operation of a temporary interim minimum security work center. In 2006, the minimum security interim work center opened and planning for a new jail began in earnest. Over the next few years, money was appropriated to fund a jail site selection process, facilities planning, and preparation of studies necessary to locate a new jail in Whatcom County. A jail planning task force was formed, and the hard work of this group resulted in recommendations for tangible next steps in development of a new jail proposal. In January of 2013, the county purchased approximately 40 acres on La Bounty Road in Ferndale as the proposed site for a new jail, and in the fall of 2014, Council approved a contract with DLR Group for design and engineering services. The Council approved a recommendation for the county executive to move forward with jail planning by hiring a professional jail planner and identifying parcels of land that could support siting of a horizontally designed jail. In 2015, the Council established the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force to study ways to prevent and reduce incarceration in Whatcom County. That same month, the Council approved a resolution to place a measure on the general election ballot for 0.2% sales tax increase to fund a new jail at the La Bounty Road site. In November 2015, Whatcom County voters rejected the ballot measure. Over the next 2 years, the county secured a jail facilities use agreement with other Whatcom County jurisdictions, and the County Council held a public hearing to gather citizen input on jail size. The Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force worked diligently to prepare recommendations for safely and effectively reducing incarceration of individuals struggling with mental illness and chemical dependency, and also to minimize jail utilization by pretrial defendants who can safely be released. In July 2017, the County Council adopted an ordinance to place another measure on the general election ballot for 0.2% sales tax increase to fund costs associated with financing, construction, maintenance, and operation of jail facilities and incarceration prevention programs, including medical and behavioral health facilities and programs. In November of 2017, Whatcom County voters rejected the ballot measure. So, that brings us to where we are today. The County Council formed this committee to ensure thorough study and review of criminal justice and public safety. Our first priority is to reach out to the community and give citizens the chance to provide input and ideas for enhancing public safety and criminal justice in Whatcom County. Our process going forward will be to compile the data from these listening sessions and work with the Incarceration, Prevention, and Reduction Task Force to begin Phase 2, a needs assessment. The needs assessment will address who should be in our jail, where the jail should be located, a capital and operating budget, and what is the right size jail for Whatcom County. Once the needs assessment is complete, we will begin Phase 3, which is the facility planning process. The committee appreciates you coming out tonight and sharing your views with us about criminal justice in Whatcom County. Well, again, thank you all for coming out. I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Councilmember Sat Paul Sadhu and Councilmember Tyler Bird. And I'm Barry Buchanan, and I'm going to turn it over now to our facilitator, Holly, and she is going to lead us through the process tonight. That's an interesting unit.
That's an interesting, let's see. Oh, it works, great. Hey, everybody, I'm Holly O'Neill, and I'm here, thank you. Keep poking me. I'm here to serve as the facilitator for tonight's session. I want to start, of course, by thanking you for coming. I also want to... Oh, that was awful. How can I not have that happen again? Like get farther away? Yes. Get, to my good friend Tyler Bird. Okay. So I want to thank, I want to recognize and thank Pinky Vargas from the Bellingham City Council for coming, and Tim Ballou from Whatcom County Council, and also Sheriff Elfo, who has been to every single session. So thank you so much for being here tonight up in East County. And this, as Barry had mentioned, we've been doing a series of these, and I'm a South Fork girl, so I've gotten to go out around and be part of all of them. And it has been really great to watch. I just want to acknowledge the quality of your listening throughout these sessions, council members, and just, I think, the integrity of this process and the hopes for us to really have a generative discussion. So, thank you. Can you still hear me? Is this still working? Okay. So I'm going to talk about how this evening's going to work. I want to do a little housekeeping. If you're not familiar with the Resource Center, the bathrooms are right out there, and there's also a drinking fountain, so if you go through those doors. How many people are from East County? Yes, my peeps. Okay, great. Thank you for coming out. We have, the way the evening will go is I'm going to lay out the ground rules, and then I'm going to have everybody get a chance to speak. And after probably about an hour, depending on if we're all finished, then the council members may have other additional questions they'd like to ask you. So we'll just be either, you can get up at the mic, or I'll pass it around. We'll kind of see how it goes. And then at the end of the evening, as I mentioned, this is the last session, so my colleague Marty Solomon and I will be writing up a report that summarizes all that we heard from the different listening sessions. And you should all feel grateful, because I do believe that Marty now has carpal tunnel syndrome because of these sessions. So we're all going to feel appropriately compassionate here. I also have Genevieve here tonight, and she'll be helping with the timekeeping. So, the ground rules. They're right behind. Can you, I don't know if you can see them. Can I maybe get you to move for just 1 second? So, it's important that each person use the microphone when it's time to speak, and you always want to start by saying your name. So use the microphone. You get 3 minutes each, and like I said, Genevieve will help with doing, giving little flashing cards. You will get more than one chance to speak. So if you've come with a lot to say, don't worry, there's more than one chance, but I like to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak, so kind of ones before twos, right? Everybody gets a chance. I want to emphasize that there are no wrong answers. So this is really important. We're here because and for the purpose of having lots of different points of view, and people have different feelings and thoughts. So really just respect the fact that the reason we're here is to find out the diversity of viewpoints on this. We're not all going to think the same, but we do want to stay on topic, and we do want to maintain an atmosphere of courtesy. Got it? You with me on this? Yes. Okay. So, thank you. That was so nice of you to move. You are here to share with the council whatever you want to say on this topic of criminal justice and public safety. Here are some questions that might stimulate your imagination. So, if you had concerns about the previous jail proposal, what were your concerns? What would be your hopes for a better solution? This one right behind Genevieve, I don't know if you can see, is what are the results we are looking for? So at the end of the day, if our community invests all this funding and effort, what is it that we're actually aiming to achieve? This is the question that really emerged when we were in Linden. This is actually what they kind of like, this is what we need to understand. We need to understand. Where are we going? What's the vision of success? And then lastly, what information do you think our community needs to make a good decision? This is especially important because as we move forward, you'll notice as you're listening, there's a lot of things we don't know the answers to. So we need to start thinking, especially before we go into the needs assessment, what do we need to understand so that we as a community can make a smart decision? Your survey, somebody lift their survey. There you go. Okay, that's the survey. So think about it as a tool you can use throughout the evening, to write down ideas, or you can scribble all over it. But certainly if you think of other things, it would be useful information. And we also handed out an FAQ that has some really good links to websites that I do recommend and encourage you to check out. Okay, I think that's it. Did I forget anything, gals? Okay. Are you ready? It's going to be fun. All right, so who would like to begin? The floor is open for your thoughts on this topic. Great. And so remember, do you want to use them like this, or would you rather stand up there? Or? Here, I'm going to just hand it to you. Yeah, there you go. Name first.
Well, my name is Jeff Margolis, and I've lived in the county for nearly a half a century.
There you go. Right to your mouth, Jeff.
And so I'm sure you've had a lot of input about where it should go and what it should cost and stuff like that. And so my concern is with preemption. And I grew up when I was a youth child. My father was a corrections administrator for 42 years, an inspector and controller in New York City. And I bonded with him by going on forays to prison farms and prisons. And that's where I learned my attitude. And so I've been successful in convincing my children and my grandchildren that the first offense is the worst offense. And they never want to have anything to do with police or lawyers. And everything is fine. And so that's what I want to see with others. So how is that done? And I think that most people don't realize, they say, well, crime doesn't pay, but they don't realize how punishing it is, how punishing. And so to be involved in criminal behavior brings you into a minefield of pitfalls that go way beyond arrest. There are fines, there are fees, there's dealing with lawyers, there's, oh, I won't have to go to jail, I'll be on probation maybe. And then you're on probation, and then if you violate probation, all of a sudden things get worse and worse and worse. Or maybe there are fees that you haven't paid and it goes to a collection agency. Or maybe the crime you were involved in was minor and your car gets taken and you have to forfeit your car and now you can't get to work. And now you have a whole new status. You're a felon. You can't vote. You're incarcerated, or you're stigmatized. So how do you get ahead of that? And so all I can say is that we need a school curriculum minimally. I would call it Wise Up. And in wising up people, youngsters, I would say middle school, you really have to bring them to jail and give them a tour. You have to let them know that there are pitfalls ahead, and you have to work at keeping yourself safe, healthy, and happy. And because all of this has a cumulative effect. And so in middle school, I don't know what you call it, health skills, life skills, people have to be taught about health, and that these pitfalls are lying in wait, because society is hierarchical. No matter how hard we try, there's someone trying to beat you over the head. And so, okay. Sure, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, who's next? You ready? Are you ready? Great.
I'm Vern Yaden, Pastor Kendal Chappell. I did serve my ministerial internship as a chaplain assistant at the Tennessee State Penitentiary, 1,000 white, 1,000 black. And so I was acquainted with the prison situation early on. There are two kinds of people, according to a couple of philosophers that were logical positivists, and they said there's two kinds of people. There's the muddle-headed and the simple-minded. And I think that this is a problem in our politics, is that we have people who are concentrating on a comprehensive solution. And so they're waiting and processing until all the pieces get together. I think we have that problem in our immigration, where you can't solve our immigration because there's so many pieces that need to go into a comprehensive program. Then you have the simple-minded who are wanting to arrive at a solution. So they want to eliminate a lot of the pieces they don't think are necessary, and so they want to get to the end result. So they want to take it maybe piece by piece. Well, I think that we have to break this down, and to have a comprehensive solution would be wonderful. But it's not going to be possible, I don't think, in our political climate that we have, especially between the city and the county. And so I think we have to find common ground where we can target a small piece of it and work at it piece by piece. Thank you.
Are you ready? No? Okay, who's next? Okay, so here's what, are you ready? Great.
I voted against the jail.
Say your name first.
Susie Soderlund. I felt it was too big, too expensive. I'm finding that everybody's coming with their hand out. Property taxes are going up, sales taxes going up, everything's going up except for my income. So anything that makes me spend more money that I don't have in my own pocket, I'm going to be against. I also didn't see a lot of how do we break the cycle of incarceration? What supports are there for people who are in this system? How do they get out of it? How do they start over? How do they do something other than be a criminal? And those are the things I want to see more than how do we put them in jail. I want to see how do we stop the cycle. I know there's a lot of problems with mental health issues, and jail is not an appropriate place for that to be addressed. Mental health issues, jails They need to not be for profit, but we need to figure out how to make them self-sustaining so that they're not a huge suck on the rest of us. Because I grew up in the era and in Skagit County with Northern State Hospital. Big facility, self-sustaining. They grew their own vegetables, canned them, had their own dairy, used all the creamery, used all the old stuff. I'd like to see some sort of system where it can be self-sustaining so that it's not just every year come in with me, oh, we need more money for this, we need more money for that. How can we make it more self-sustaining and stop the cycle? Stop the cycle.
I'm Carol Frazee, and first I'd like to say this has nothing to do with the jail, but if we can do the videos with closed caption, that might help a lot of people. First, I think we're seeing that the county, we want treatment over incarceration. I think we've heard that at most of the sessions. And first, having a risk assessment tool would be good. That would take out the it would be a data-driven risk assessment to take out the racial bias that occurs, and also allow for, we can decide who will be the people who will be in the jail then, and who's the biggest risk to the community. The second would be to establish a pretrial service unit, and that would be people to give phone calls for those who need to get to trial, and also check for drug use, get them services they need, get them to the services they need. So if we could have those in place, that would help. I've been to the jail. We do need a new jail. It's not good for the workers or the people in it. And also, if we could have a classroom, a big classroom that's open all the time for the people in jail. I think education changes lives, and even if you can get them in there a little bit and teach them to read a little, that's going to make a huge difference. Right now, the classroom they have is tiny, and it's only open in the evening because during the day they're having the attorneys visit with the people going to trial all day in that classroom. So if we can have a place before for it to be open all the time for Goodwill Industries to come in and for the Whatcom Literacy Council, that would be great. So treatment over incarceration, education, getting these pre-trial services to help others, to get them to the services they need. Thank you.
So, while I'm right here, are you ready? Not yet? Not yet? You got it. Shorty, are you ready? Not yet? Okay. So,
I'm Rebecca Boonstra, and I usually start off talking by thanking the people who came here for coming here. So thank you, council members, for being here. It's really important that you guys are taking time to do this, and I'm really impressed. I think it's really great. I am glad that I get to speak right after Carol, because I definitely echo what you're saying. I took the opportunity to go take a tour through the jail, and I think the thing that stuck out the most to me as I was able to witness individuals who are incarcerated was that there was a huge difference between the individuals who are working in the kitchen and the individuals who were in their cells. And I got to interact a little bit more with the individuals working in the kitchen, and they really felt proud of being able to, A, have something to do, and to be part of working. And I think that that's the kind of thing that if we're going to have a new jail, which I think we do need to have, that we need to have opportunities for inmates to participate, to work, to either work in kitchens or garden or take classes. I think those are important to me in our jail. That's you.
Hello, my name is Pinky Vargas. Thank you very much, Council, for doing this tour. Full disclosure, I did work on the Jail Task Force Committee in regards to funding and have been following this process pretty closely. And I feel like I'm really caught in between because I know is not a great place for anyone to be. Anybody who works there, or anybody who's incarcerated there, there's very limited opportunities for anybody to get any programs or access. There's no way to reduce recidivism there, and there's no way to help people's mental health because the jail isn't big enough. It doesn't have the facilities and has no way to provide those facilities for people. And I want us to move to, I'm really struggling with our mass incarceration in this country, and I want us to move towards alternatives and diversions as much as I possibly can. So I'm struggling with how to reconcile, how do we build a new jail, and how do we offer all these resources to people, and then how do we pay for it? And I know that this is a big thing, but I know that those conditions are awful for everyone, and nobody gets better there. And I want to figure out how we do this together in regards to having opportunities. So what are our biggest obstacles? And I'm curious what's been said. Is it the location? Is it the size? I know that, these are huge issues for people. So I guess for me is I know that we need a new facility. I want to figure out with the community what they support and how we get there together, because these are tough to reconcile with the conditions that we have to deal with right now. And it's totally unfair for anybody to have to be in those conditions, but also ensuring that we have that we are moving forward, that we are not acting like we did 30 years ago, but we are a generation that's being progressive and working towards reduction of incarceration and alternatives and diversion programs. So I want us to focus on that, but I also know we need to build a new jail. So how do we reconcile that? That's what I'm sure that's what you want to know. Anybody else ready?
Yeah, why don't we keep passing it just to make it easier, and then I don't have to run back and forth. If you're not ready to speak, then just pass. Oh, right behind, just if you're ready? Okay. Well, if I listened, that would be great, don't you think? There you go.
Can't sign and talk at the same time. You want to interpret for me? I'll just talk? Okay. All right. This is an information meeting and safety meeting. I taught in prisons for about 3 different years. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, and your name.
Joseph Garcia. I've been in Whatcom County for 23 years now. I taught in prisons for several years, both GED and other life skills courses. And I must say, first, I had a captive audience. They did their homework, which is great. The people who did go to GED, it changed their lives. It made a big difference. So the person who, you mentioned something about education in jails, very crucial element to reduce recidivism in jails. Whatever you decide to do, that is a very important component. Also, as far as mental health issues, I also formed groups for Native Americans in prisons who are not used to being confined and have a different cultural implication to prisons than the dominant culture. And I think we need to also be sensitive to some of those issues, because we could be sort of exacerbating the issues that people face in prisons if we're not culturally sensitive to those things. So those are 2 elements I want you to consider when you're planning your systems. As a strong educational component that helps people get out of the problems that put them there in the first place, and to be cultural sensitive to the various groups that do end up incarcerated, if they are. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
By the way, I was also a sign language interpreter in prisons, and it was a rare thing to have a sign language interpreter. If you do have a deaf person in prison, the cost to the county is pretty extensive, because you need to have that interpreter there for any communication that happens between the prison officials and that person. So keep that in mind too. That's an incredible expense that most officials completely forget. Just like tonight's meeting, to have us there is really a consideration that was a difficult thing for the county to muster up, and you need to be sensitive and prepare for that well ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, who's next? And for those of you who just joined us, there's some ground rules right behind the interpreter. 3 minutes a person. We use the mic. Okay, you got it? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, my name is Carl McDaniel, and I'm going to be very brief about this. When I read that title, I read Whatcom County Council, Criminal Justice, and Public Safety. What I'm seeing here is a sales pitch for a jail. When I read up there, what I hear is, gee, what ideas can we have, like getting a psychology degree partly in our officers so they can diffuse things before it gets going, building community relations so there's reasons for people not to commit crimes, having community dinners, doing things to build community. I don't hear, let's just build a bigger jail and we'll figure a way to pay for it. That's not what I thought this tour was about. But anyways, there are a lot of things that can be done before we ever get to the jail to keep people out of those jails. And it comes down to community. Those costs are rather small compared to the cost of a jail or incarcerating somebody year after year after year, or even just getting an officer to say, hey, you know what? You're kind of going down the wrong path. Let's see what we can figure out here. Just a quick psychology thing, not just you're a bad kid, you're going to jail, goodbye. You know, it seems like that's the wrong way of doing this. Anyways, that was it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica B. And I just want to say that some of what I'm hearing tonight, I would like to echo as well and have it entered into the record. I'm hearing a lot of conversation around reducing recidivism through education, and I agree with that. And also with what Carl said about building community, I think that links into the comment that you made, sir, about cultural humility and coming at this process and how we work with those who have made these mistakes so that they can leave as successful citizens. I also think about how a new jail will preserve human dignity and help support that. And I think that needs to be made clear if you're going to go for that again. And I think the other half of your argument is going to be your diversion programs and the pretrial services that help people be successful and meet the requirements of the law and do their time if they have time, but come out ready to rejoin the community and really feeling their humanity was preserved. Thank you.
I have a mic question. No, this one's, never mind. Okay, this one is it's a little awkward to hold. I'm just going to warn you, but it's fine. I don't think it's going to fall apart, but it's a little odd. Okay, who's next? Let's see if I know that I'm seeing there's a couple people who've come to several sessions, so let's get everybody who hasn't yet been to a session first. Yeah.
I'm Shorty Bjornstead, lived up here forever, but it's kind of a catch-22 thing that I can see here, because the joke on the Hill has been forever, a lot of times when the sheriff arrests somebody, the bad guy's up here before the sheriff's back. So we obviously need a jail to put that person in if we catch somebody that actually has broken the law. I guess you could debate forever size, where, whatever. To me, that's gotten kind of boring. I would come up with a compromise, maybe build something that could be added on easily if you need it bigger. If that would get the votes, I don't know, but I do know you need a jail. But at the same point, I kind of go with what Carl says. There's like I said, it's catch-22, because it'd be great if the sheriff didn't have to arrest anybody. You know, if you didn't have the guys running around half nuts on the quads and whatnot, you know, at midnight. So some kind of an education process, maybe somehow get people involved in the community, maybe through the schools. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. All I know is that a lot of the kids around where I live, you know, if they're at a crossroads in their life. I think everybody in the world is, you know, and you can go one way or the other. And the influence to go the good way would be really good. And a lot of times that influence isn't there. The other thing, just because I'm sitting next to Jeff, if you do build a jail, I like Van Zandt. I had to add that just because Jeff is here.
Oh, now them's fighting words there, Shorty. Okay, anybody else? Do you, Dominique? You not ready? You guys ready? Anybody here? Come on, Richard. No? Okay. Anybody here? Oh, yeah, you're ready now? Great.
Hi, my name's Andronetta Douglas. This is my first meeting that I've come to, and thank you all for being here. It's great to hear all these ideas. I really like the ideas I've heard. I was against the jail because I felt that we hadn't carried out the advice from the VERA report to try to decrease the number of people being incarcerated, and we haven't decreased the number of people waiting trial due to cash bail, for which the risk assessment is essential, but I know the judges are working on that already. I was a nurse in San Francisco at the Presidio Hospital, and I took care of federal prisoners, so I'm very well aware that federal prisoners have heart attacks. I don't like the idea of moving the jail away from the hospital. I think that'll lead to more severe injuries in case of attempted suicide or heart attacks, because every minute causes more damage to the brain and the heart. My granddaughter's mother attempted suicide in a jail down in Pierce County, and they were slow to respond. They were able to bring her back, but now she's in her late 30s with the brain of a 5-year-old. So she will always need caregiving from here on in. And that is one of the problems of being too far away from essential services. And I think that's about it. I would like to see fewer people incarcerated. I would like us to address the racial disparities. And I would like to have more ways that help people recover rather than just punish. Now, as a nurse, I helped get a guy convicted of sexual assault on his daughter. And unfortunately, he was the main money earner for the family, so she ended up homeless after that, which probably meant her life on earth was worse even than it had been before. So thank you very much.
You want to speak?
That's real quick. Tim Ballou, County Council Member at Large. Here's a council member to hear from the people. Appreciate all of the suggestions, responses, and questions that you guys have, and really appreciate the county leads who've helped host these events, as well as Sheriff Elfo, who I remember talking with before these started. He said he was going to make it to all of them, as many as he could. So together with the council members, I'm looking forward to hearing a summary of the suggestions and concerns from the community, including East County, and also looking forward to working with the policy team to bringing solutions to reducing our incarceration and also bringing a new jail that is much needed. So again, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, anybody back here? Do you want to speak? No? Are you ready? You sure? Okay, I'm going to keep on. First, anybody else? Yes?
I really don't have an opinion about the jail. This is my first time here.
So say your name first.
Carolyn E. I came because I had one question. In my neighborhood, I noticed what looked like could be sex trafficking, and I was wondering what you're supposed to do, what signs to look for to call the police, or if you just see someone like a child looking scared in their yard and a couple men standing next to the child, and you think, and then one drives off with the child. Is it his son, or is it somebody being trafficked? How do you know, and when do you call the police? That's my question.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, so I'm right here. Either of you? Are you ready? Not yet. Okay. Ready?
My thoughts have already been said.
Okay. Let's pass it down. Do you want to speak or?
Hi, I'm Ivy Little. I've lived in Whatcom County most all of my life. I came here when I was 7 years old, and I've stayed. The thing I noticed different since I was in the county with the sheriff and stuff, they were really good working with kids. I remember a couple of times they scared me because my horse ate over somebody's boundary. Of course, they came to visit me over it, and he gave me a little talk, and I learned about boundary lines, which I thought was really neat. Well, nowadays, it's a little different because everybody can be sued or whatever, so the laws have kind of changed with people with the chairs, which I hate to see that. But it takes a whole village to help out everybody in it. When I was a kid, if you threw a rock, the neighbor told you that's not good. You can't do that. We can't do that stuff now. So it makes it a little harder because that's part of the whole tribe helping out, making every people see right down the road. And if that doesn't happen, it's going to keep going. Another thing that's really bad about this, family members that have people incarcerated. It's just not what happens to them. It also happens to the family because they got to put out money to help them while they're in jail. They got to help them with incarceration. So it really goes down the line. So everybody doesn't get good counseling, plus the family, how to deal with these people, and plus the people who are in jail need to know how to deal with their family. So if some of that isn't taken care of, it's a lost road. Everybody needs to get help all the way around in the family because it's a family situation. And for this tribe to work, we all need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so the folks who are sitting down here on the floor, you guys want to comment? Okay. Are you ready yet? Great. Super.
This is my first visit here, but coming to, Susan.
Yeah.
And
Last name,
Johns. And I've worked, and I'm going to go back as far as one way to help with incarceration, or at least I have worked in the Whatcom County Library System for 25 years, and my focus was on the youth. And I have found through various experiences that the impact that people in certain positions in the county working with individuals can have an impact on younger people that may help defer them from going into a more serious condition. In one of my situations, I did have a young teen who burned a book in the library, and it was quite an intensive experience. And I had known this person for a long time, and there was a lot of issues around him. But after he got out of juvenile, we became friends, and I worked with him on various things outside of the schooling. He was one of 13 children, the last one. And I'm just wondering what other resources in the county are available like that can help you within the boundaries of what your position allows to help perhaps prevent a younger person who has a lot of situations going on from moving into more serious endeavors. And this young man did very well after he came out of that and various things. So I think it's not just a matter of adults, but children who come from pretty tough stuff, and how we can help and what kind of programs we have throughout our community that can help in that issue. So that's just my feeling on that, but I think there is a lot of hope in the young people if we can address it.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet who also has never been to another session? Okay, so then people who've been to other sessions but would like their chance, go ahead.
Mike Kaufman. I've been to quite a few of these sessions, and it's a continuing thing. I left off last time questioning the language sequence of criminal justice. And I was asking that question last week, and I asked it of Judge Garrett. And I said, when do you consider someone to be a criminal? And she said, well, after they've been in court and the court has deemed them to be guilty. And the person that was on the tour with me started schooling me about how the state has all this written out, and you're a criminal here or there. My point is that I think that we have the language backwards. That at first you enter the system by being arrested. Then you have justice in front of you to deal with. Justice determines that you're a criminal. And in fact, we've been marketed into the fact that once the arrest is now you're a criminal, and then you go to the justice. And we need to turn those words around, and you are not a criminal until you've gone through the justice system. I think that the county has to look at itself and ask itself a question. Are we in the business, and do we condone that jail is good because we're punishing people? We need to punish people, and by being in jail, they're being punished. Or do we want to be a community that recognizes rehabilitation? And we have to make a determination on that as to who we are as a people. Rehabilitation or punishment? Because I believe the prosecutor has demonstrated, who's been in control for over 4 decades, has certainly vocalized the fact that he wants a large jail and a good jail because that is punishment. And that it's punishment, it's large. A person, again last week that I spoke to, that's very high in the echelons of the law and justice and system said, yeah, he's a good guy, he served the county for a good time, but he's stuck in the 70s and the 80s, and he believes in punishment. And that's the authority that right now we are operating under, and we have a chance to change that. And I think it's very important in our society to ask ourselves that question, which and who are we? I spent the day today calling the Cleveland Clinic and the University of Washington Medical Department to ask them if they know anything about brain health in criminals, or incarcerated individuals. I'm 66 years old, and my brain is changing. And I've looked into some brain health and nutrition. I've changed my health, and I have had an effect on my brain. I've noticed it personally. I did a jail tour last week. And when you go into that jail and you see people sitting there, 32 men in a cell with nothing to do, brain health, nutrition, and what the incarceration system does to them. Because again, Judge Garrett reiterated that the vast majority of people that are in the criminal system, and the jailers themselves recognized that they know most everybody going through. It's a revolving door, that it's very few people that are new, and it's very few people that really need to be there.
Thank you. Okay. Someone back here? Joy, did you have your hand up? Mm-hmm.
Joy Gilfill in Bellingham, Washington. I did something for you, Satpal. You asked at the last meeting that you wanted the public to deliver you a solution. And if you'll hand those out. Okay. I did it. It's not a simple solution because it's a very complex problem. We spent $11, $13, $14 million planning to build a jail that the taxpayers have voted down twice. You're asking the taxpayers to come up with a competitive bid for an alternative to a $14 million presumptive plan. So I did, in this diagram here, break the jail problem down into 3 different sectors. One of them was what happens before an arrest with addiction and the adverse childhood experiences and the mental health issues that precede even arresting people. I have another section that talks about what's after an arrest and during an incarceration, what needs to be done there. And then I have post-conviction and release and what needs to be done there. Because the Vera Institute is the premier justice institute in the United States, they came to Whatcom County and they studied our system, and basically they flunked our entire system. Now, our officials who are in charge of the system resisted it and pushed back, and it was dismissed a lot by the people of Whatcom County or the officials in Whatcom County, and they continue to try to force a jail on us, regardless of whether you're saying that you're doing a listening tour or not. I too hear in the embedded message behind this that you want to figure out how to build a new jail. The fact is, this administration has, since 2010 that I came aboard, has been planning to build a new jail and has not yet truly allowed the public an opportunity to bring forward solutions in anything other than 3-minute segments. Our coalition has been researching it since 2006. We delivered a proposal prior to Vera Institute, which was this report. Not a single person from the Whatcom County Council was interested. Not a single person from our administration was interested. This preceded the Vera report, folks. Our coalition has been working on the problems in Whatcom County on purpose for over 8 years, and we have yet. This report is Stop Punishing Taxpayers, Start Rebuilding Community. Again, I'm president of the Restorative Community Coalition. We are probably the premier local expert on what's the matter with our jail system and how we can fix it, and no one wants to hear from us. I have a problem with that, folks, but I did deliver you a one-page solution. Thank you. And of course, I have more.
You have more copies with you? More. Great. Okay. Thank you, and I really appreciate too that you came to another session, then came back with this. That was righteous. Okay. Somebody else? Who else is ready to speak? Did you get a copy? Okay. Who's next? Did you want to speak again? You had your hand up before? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, you're good now. Okay, do it again. Name, 3 minutes, take it.
All right, Carl McDaniel again. One of the things, I wanted to speak to the actual criminal justice and public safety. One of the things I found out living up here, when I originally moved here, my kids were off to college and moving on, and I didn't really care whether there was things for kids to do. It didn't matter to me. But the crime rate up here was insane. I mean, random gunshots every night. It was insane. When my grandkids moved in with me, I realized there was nothing, and I mean nothing, for them to do. We started working with a bunch of different people, and now we got the Boys and Girls Club, we got the YMCA, we got soccer, we got, oh, you name it. I mean, there's more things to do. We have to actually pick and choose what we do now. What we found is the kids aren't getting in trouble. Number one, they don't have time, but number two, they don't want to get into trouble because they want to play soccer, or they want to go to choir, or they want spending money in an effective way to get people busy in a positive way seems to work a lot better than just leaving them to their own devices and saying, oh, there's nothing for you to do, we'll get in trouble, whatever. Costs of programs for like soccer for kids or whatever, it's a little cost prohibitive, but now we're kind of finding scholarships for the ones that don't have money. But I think if the county council said, maybe we could do some way of saying we could put out something to where people have things to do. The community is more active, tied together, I guess, kind of what I'm trying to say. That and then the homeless. We have a homeless population that don't fit into the community. We want them to, but they just don't. They don't have any ties to the community, and they can just move on at any time. So they're the ones that are kind of creating problems right now. We need to find a way to deal with the homeless. Granted, it's not part of the jail, but it is part of the public safety and the criminal justice system. So that's kind of all tied in. There's a lot of stuff before we ever get to. I'm not completely opposed to a new jail. I understand the jail we have is bad. But I'm kind of going, there's a lot of things that need to happen before we start saying we're going to incarcerate people. But anyway, so that was the second part of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'll go again. The other night I was watching Jeff Margolis. I was watching West Side Story, which was written and composed in 1955, and famous scene, Officer Krupke, and the juvenile delinquents are saying, and I have a social disease. So we've known for over a century, and especially since the turn from 19th to the 20th century industrial revolution, that our crime problems have expanded exponentially. And, it's kind of banal to talk about income distribution and, and the whole socio-political situation. But a lot of crime is ultimately about self-abuse, and the self-abuse comes about through depression. This isn't not trying to say that people don't have responsibility, but unless we come to grips with the big picture, we're going to have this forever. That being said, I'm going to make a confession, and I don't think that we've heard my reasoning. The reason why I didn't vote for the jail is because of the close confluence of a railroad spur, an incinerator, and a jail. And I will never vote for that combination. I thought that there was only one people in the world who could do that. But now, and my apologies to you, sir, not that I think that you would do anything of that nature, but we're close. And I don't want any criminals next to an incinerator and a rail spur, ever.
Shorty Bjornstead again, and I just wanted to add to what Carl said back there because he made a lot of sense. And I think one example of that is the building we're sitting in. And that's like we were to you guys, a couple weeks ago asking for money for a second one. And I don't even know where that's at right now, but that's not what I brought up. Basically, you guys, somebody in the county gave money to build this building. If this building wasn't built, everything that Carl was talking about would not exist. So that little bit of investment, and I don't even remember what it was and how much, and who the county council members were at that time, but at the same point, they made a decision to invest X amount of dollars up here on the hill to build a building, and they probably didn't even know what was even going to go in there. And probably at the time, I know a lot of people drove by, probably me, and I know my wife did. It was the biggest joke in the world. They built this monstrosity and nobody's ever going to go there. Well, now you go by here. I mean, I can go in and talk to Jessica, who works here. There's something going on here every day with little kids doing this and doing that. You got a mat behind you so they can tumble on it so they don't hurt themselves. And that was a small investment compared to what the jail will cost. And now I'm going to do a little politicking. Like we're asking for a basketball court. And, I'm amazed how much money stuff costs, but then what is the return in the long-term return? If then Carl can get some kids and get a basketball thing going, or we can get maybe some of these 3-on-3 teams with the teenagers and stuff like that, so we got a place to do it. And it has nothing to do, and nowhere in the budget or any of that is it going to have anything to do with justice or public safety. But in the long run, it's probably more important than another sheriff running around in circles. You know what I mean? So did I have another minute? Yes. Okay. Not that it really means much to me. Anyway, one thing that really bugged me, and I am never going to badmouth the sheriff. I've known every one of them that moved up here, and did their time up here. I think Jason up here is doing an awesome job. But one thing that kind of bugs me is when they're out there with talking to somebody that maybe broke the law, it's too bad there wasn't some system where local people, because we're kind of isolated up here, could step in and kind of counsel these people. I know twice I've been involved where I knew the guy that was going to be arrested. I knew what he had done wrong. I went over there and I wanted to just, let's diffuse this a little bit. And I understand they got protocol. I understand we got insurance and all that stuff anymore. But I couldn't even come close to the situation. And so somehow or other, and maybe they could do some classes up here or something. Oh, I'm out of time. But you know what I'm saying? So that somehow diffuse the thing before the guy's tossed in the back of the car and has to go to town.
Appreciate that. Do you want to speak? No. Okay. Who's next?
Holly?
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll go to the council questions now.
That's what I was thinking too. Let's go ahead.
I think it's a good time.
Okay. So now the council members will have an opportunity to ask questions of you, and the same kind of basic ground rules will apply. So, council members? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Do you want to use that one, and then I can run back and forth with the mic? If you're use this one, Barry. Yeah.
If it was a spider, it would have bit me. Heard mention about the Vera report. One of the things that the Vera report stated was that for a community to start really understanding their needs, they really need to grapple with the question of who belongs in our jail and who doesn't. What's that threshold of a violation? We want to get your opinion, what you think that level is, and who belongs in jail and who doesn't belong in our jail.
Thoughts on that? Mm-hmm.
I'm Kristen Hanna from Bellingham. There really, when you think about it, there aren't that many people who actually belong in jail, because jail is meant to be a house of punishment. It's a house of punishment. So the question becomes, who do you want to punish? And call it for that, Who are we going to punish? And a jail is just to punish people for less than a year. The rest of the people go to prisons. There's a difference. The community deals with jails, which is the intake of what later goes to prison. But this is where we could stop it. And it stops before it goes into the court. It stops when the council can agree on a solution and work with the executive branch to work on a solution, and the courts. And I think the courts are working hard. I think the council is waiting. The voters are saying we need to do something. And the executive branch is waiting to say, well, if we don't arrest people, what do we do? And I think maybe a policy passed, but maybe the council can, your policy makers, maybe have a policy, pass a policy, some sort of ordinance maybe that would direct the executive branch to take steps before an arrest is made. Why not? You're lawmakers. It's in your purview. So.
Thank you so much. So the question, who should be in our jail, who shouldn't be in our jail?
Thank you. Again, my name is Pinky Vargas. Who I don't think should be in jail is people who are dealing just with addiction problems, people who are just dealing with mental health issues, and people who cannot afford to pay fines. and are just in a cycle of not being able to pay fines for maybe sitting on a sidewalk or whatever that is. I think that our prisons are full of people who are in a circle of debt. And also people who are sitting there for pre-trial. Like right now, we're up to 21 days and sometimes longer for people to sit there who are just waiting for trial. They are not yet considered guilty, and they are sitting there and they are not able to be at their jobs, they're not able to be with their families. And so looking at programs like electronic home monitoring that allows people to not sit in jail but keep their life going while they're going through pretrial, I think that is important for us not to put these people in jail.
Thank you. Okay, other thoughts on this?
Carol Frazee. I agree with Pinky about who should not be in jail, the drug offenses and also mental health issues. But people who should be in the jail, and I haven't, at the ones I have been to of these, I haven't heard this as much, but just like you were saying, the effect that having this resource center has had on the children, I think crimes against children, they should be the ones in the jails and moving on to the prisons. And I think that we always talk about root cause, and we overlook that a lot, and we don't want to say it. But crimes against children do have an effect and are the root cause to a lot, if you look at the studies, of the people in prisons and jails. We do need to crack down on that and stop that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Andronetta Douglas, and I agree with Pinky at what Pinky said about who should not be in jail. I would like to speak up as somebody who had a father who was both emotionally and physically abusive. It would not have helped me if he was in jail. We would have been on the street homeless. So I think we need to look a lot more at reformation, how to work with the families and all of the people being affected by the abuse. Because just sticking them in jail is going to destroy the whole family, not just the person committing the crime. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with you. Joy Gilfillan, for the record. Vera Institute asked us in the Vera report to investigate and actually do case studies and start mapping what happens to people who get arrested. That's an important part of research that has not been properly investigated across the nation. So our coalition started doing that, and I was stunned to realize by the time we did this mapping process, I don't know if you can grab the end of that. This is a report that I did based upon a follow-up to the Vera Institute report, the Superior Court model that they published. And I scribbled all over it as I started to investigate and talk to people who were arrested and went through the jail system. And I've done probably 20 different versions of this little map, talking to different people to understand what happened to them. And I can tell you that it is absolutely unconscionable that we put people in jail because the county law didn't quash their warrant. It's not okay with me that people, once they get arrested, the emotional trauma that they sustain in the first, as soon as they're arrested, as soon as they cause a death, or they get in an accident, or they have something unfortunate happen, their emotional response is, oh my God, what did I do? And there is not one opportunity from the beginning of the point where they caused something to happen, if they were a criminal in the first place, which is sometimes not the case. Within that first period of time until they completely get out of the system, they never get an opportunity to really say, I'm sorry. They never get an opportunity to deal with the displacement and the damage that they caused other people. They end up getting thrown in an isolated cell, unable to be hugged, loved, talked to, supported, or anything. By the time they go through that process, they are mentally ill before they even get let out of jail. That's not right. The only people I believe need to be in that jail are people who intentionally are angry, violent, intending to harm someone. Those people need to be in jail. Everyone else, we should be solving the problem in some other way. We have restorative justice solutions. I just got off the phone with the chief of police in Portland, Maine, and he's actually implementing several of the proposals that we offered to the county council quite a long time ago, prior to that last $50,000 grant. And these are solutions, it's harm reduction solutions, and he's implemented them already in Portland, Maine. He would love to pair up with us and help us implement solutions that could reduce our incarceration by 20% at least, maybe 30, 40, 50%. And I'll tell you what, we will stop harming the people who get arrested and all their family, because the trauma is horrific. And we need to stop.
Thank you. Did you want to speak? Did you guys want to speak? Okay. Anybody else on this question? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I start out by saying I agree with a lot that's been said, but for the last 20 or more years, there's been recommendations on the table to create a substance abuse triage center where law enforcement would have the alternative to taking someone for treatment as opposed to jail. There's been proposals, recommendations of various committees and professional consultants to do the same thing with people with serious behavioral health problems, an alternative to jail. And unfortunately, that has never risen. It's never been effectuated until recently. And I think as a result of the Incarceration Reduction Task Force and the work of the council, there is a 32-bed triage center, which is a good start. It's not going to solve everything. It's going to open up on Division Street in Bellingham. Ms. Frazee there talked about risk evaluation to help the judges decide who to let out of jail, who should stay in jail to make better decisions for public safety and minimize the number of people. That work is in progress. There's a lot of things that are being done. The sheriff's office has hired a deputy with the support of the council that is a behavioral health specialist. So he'll be able to deal with the complex and repetitive cases of going out, intervening, and working within the existing mental health system to find placement instead of jail. So there's a lot of good things that are on the horizon. But the thing is, there's a need for criminal justice reform, but there's a need for a building that is safe, humane, and has an ability to treat people that the courts have ordered to remain in jail, that have behavioral health problems, that have addiction problems, in a safe and humane manner. You know, we're trying to introduce now medically assisted treatment to help people to withdraw from opioid and other addictions. And those that are incarcerated, that are in the jail, and they may be in there for serious crimes. But we don't have a square inch to do that. It's very challenging as we try to move forward. Somebody talked about the need for a classroom. I think it was Pinky. I think that was accurately described. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the community for the last 2 years that are bubbling up that I think are going to make a pretty significant difference. You mentioned the Boys and Girls Club. We've worked feverishly with them to try to get the grant, to try to get this program funded out here. So law enforcement is involved. In this neighborhood, we have a neighborhood deputy to assign that knows the kids, tries to work with the kids. But, you know, Shorty said that we should try to, before sending people to jail, we should try to find alternatives. Well, we use discretion a lot. We don't arrest everybody we find. In some cases, most misdemeanors, they get a citation. They're not physically arrested unless it's a mandated crime like domestic violence or DUI, where we have currently no discretion. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.
Oh, you guys are going to dislike what we're done, I can tell. Carl McDaniel again. Again, this sounds like a loaded question. It really does. And why it does, it's not discretionary. Judges can say, this is very exact. It is a crime. This is what it is. These are the people that belong in jail. These are the people who don't belong in jail. It's very, very specific. Even their time they do in there is very specific. It's not up to us to decide who goes to jail or not. It's a judge that does that. Where the problem lies is not that judge and his job. It's everybody from when they get arrested all the way up through, like, oh, geez, he's got a heart condition, he's in a wheelchair. I can't arrest him because, oh my God, the cost's going to be too much. Or This guy, we're going to put him in jail for 30 days because he doesn't have the money to bail out. But that guy, his grandfather is a founding father. Yeah, we'll just send him out on personal recognizance. All the way down to the prosecuting attorney. Yeah, we're not going to take on that case, but we'll take on that one. The discretionary comes beforehand. The judge is the one who decides who belongs in jail. What we need to do is figure out how to get rid of all the rest of the discretionary in-between stuff that is taking a lot of favoritism and applying it to people who either have money or maybe have a more stable environment, and then taking away from the people who don't have that stable environment and prosecuting them. Anyway, so it seems to me that it isn't our job to decide who goes to jail and who doesn't. That's a judge. It's our job to figure out how to make sure everybody gets exactly the same treatment.
Thank you. You guys want to do another question? Mm-hmm. Tyler?
I wasn't ready.
You got a bookload of questions.
You
You guys are willing to be here all night, right? Because it looks like he has a book of questions here.
I have a lot of questions and notes I've taken. So.
You could go off the cuff too.
Yeah,
you know, just.
I was trying to find some.
We all do
consensus
out
through
here.
everyone, but. All right. While I'm looking through my notes and the questions I've asked, I know one of the questions that I've asked in the past is, how important is location to you and the proposed location for the last jail in Ferndale?
So, Jeff, you already spoke really heartfully to issues of location. Thank you for that. And other people, thoughts on location? Yeah. Not that you can't speak again. That wasn't my point.
When I did work in the U.S. Public Health Service Hospital, one of the things I dealt with was alcohol withdrawal. There is a 5 to 6% mortality rate with that. People die of that. And there's also other heart attacks, strokes, and all that happens when you're going through drug withdrawal. I truly believe the jail should be really close to the hospital. There's lots of suicide attempts. There's lots of health problems that happen when you're in jail. It's a highly stressful situation and generally not very healthy population. So also a lot of the other services that people need who are in jail are in Bellingham. And therefore, I really believe that the jail needs to stay close to those services. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Here are communications that our coalition and other citizens in the community published in opposition to the environmental impact statement. There's a lot of information in this report that explains exactly why people do not want to be out in the county, and that explains the amount of customers and the amount of citizens. Oh, I forgot, I'm Joy Gilfillan again. Explains many reasons why we do not want to site the jail out in the county, including some of the reasons that Jeff Margolis brought forward. But very specifically, in our case research, what we've discovered is that people have to go to that courthouse over and over and over and over again to meet probation appointments, sometimes every single day for months. It is impossible to do this kind of thing. If you're asking them to take buses out into the county, it is absolutely abhorrent to take the jail out of where they can get immediate access to court, to immediate access to the clerk, immediate access to pay bills, immediate access to get UAs, unless you want to move the entire civic center of Whatcom County out of downtown Bellingham and take 200 or 300 employees and put them in the county. It is a foolhardy idea to move it out of downtown.
Thank you. Okay, other thoughts on location? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dominique.
Dominic Mosseri. My only thought about the location is I understand the benefits for it being in Bellingham, but I think somebody previously said that sure, it'd be great if there were some other activities for them to do. It could be sustainable. Maybe there could be some farmland where they could do something else. They could contribute to it. Maybe they have their own basketball hoop. You know, there could be some other stuff for them. So I do think it is nice if they have space. I don't know where that location is. Maybe it's somewhere in between the facilities that they need in town, but there is also some land around it.
Thank you.
Kristen Hanna. I just would like to broaden the scope here. The question was the location of the jail, which place it should be. Again, it touches on presuming the need for a big jail, which, you know, that's to be determined, I guess. But some of these responses are almost alarming to me. For example, well, because of the suicidal rate, it should be close to a hospital. Makes me wonder why. Why are people in jail who are suicidal to begin with? That's even a concern. It's a hideous question, really, that we even answer like that. Well, it better be close to a hospital because of the suicide rate. That's what we should be questioning. Why would we put people who are suicidal in jail to begin with? Why? Well, no matter where it is. It's absurd, really. I think that's a scope of this question that needs to be addressed.
Mike Kaufman, if we're talking about location, the Division Street property still has the tag interim, temporary on it. But we are now in the process of building a close to $10 million triage center on that property. So is our triage center temporary and interim? Are we going to sell off that $10 million investment and then relocate it? I think that the county right now really needs to assess Division Street property and remove the interim label on it and look at the facility that's there, because it was designed only to be temporary. The jailer there says it's temporary. That we have to look at that property and determine, is it ours? Are we keeping it? Are we going to invest in that piece of land? Or are we going to do something else with it? That's the first question on the table, in my opinion.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else on this question? Yeah, okay.
So in theory, I don't want the jail in Ferndale. I want us to be closer to our resources, to our hospitals, to our lawyers, to our families, easy accessibility on our bus lines. I'm going to put on my city council hat just for a moment. For over 2.5 years, we've been trying to find a location to build a low-barrier shelter for our homeless. And I know how impossible it is to find land. And the definition of a big jail, I think most people are thinking big jail means a whole bunch of beds. Yes, there's that, but there's also room for recreation, opportunity for a library, opportunity for people to have educational opportunities. So the size of the jail also encompasses all of the things that we want for our incarceration, for our people who are incarcerated to have opportunity to. So it's this balance between having opportunities for people means that we actually need a little bit more room and we need a little bit more land in order to make that happen, so people have an opportunity to maybe not go back to jail by being reflective and having opportunity for change while they're there. That means we need room. So no, I don't want it to be far away, but where are we going to put it? We can't even find room right now to build a low-barrier shelter for our homeless community. So again, I am struggling with the need for us to have land and room to build, to have the resources we actually want to provide. But in order for it to be close enough for us Also, as a city council person, that means my police officers have to leave and go to a lot farther away, and we have less resources in the city. So this is a very complicated question in regards to location.
Thanks.
Well, the answer today in urban architecture is up, not out. It's that simple. It is that simple. Things are going up. There's no room to go out. So you just have to look at it in a new direction.
Thank you. Mhm.
There's a couple, Joy Gilfillan again. There's a couple pre-assumptions that happen in your answer, Pinky, and I appreciate that you've been working on it very diligently, and I also appreciate, Sheriff, that you've been working on this issue. But you're making a couple of pre-assumptions. One of them is that the occupancy load on the jail is the same and that it's going to get worse. I think if we in fact did the needs assessment and we did in fact look for all the alternatives that other cities across the nation are doing to reduce the occupancy load, we could easily, I do believe this, I think we could reduce our occupancy load by 50%. That's a lot of people that don't have to be incarcerated, and we don't have to build a bigger jail. The second alternative is that you have two jails. We do not have one jail. We have one jail downtown that is a high-stakes jail. If you cut all of the people that did not have to be incarcerated in a high-security location and you move the sheriff's office out of that building, which he doesn't have to be in there, from what I understand, you could actually reduce the occupancy load on the main jail by at least 50 or even higher percent, and you would then be able to do whatever remodeling you need to maintain those people. The Division Street property is a 150-bed jail. It has actually been significantly underutilized since the jail tax failed and people have started to move people out of the Whatcom County Jail. That means that Whatcom County Division Street property is living on another larger piece of property. And by the way, it is incredibly close with a little bit of ingeniosity applied or ingenious thinking. Do you know that you have direct access under the freeway from the jail directly to the hospital? You also have directly underneath the jail for emergency vehicles. If you put a route in there, you could get immediately from Division Street to the hospital in probably less than 3 minutes. That's pretty amazing access, and it's direct access to the freeway. There are all kinds of reasons to expand Division Street, but use it for alternatives for all the people who do not have to be heavily incarcerated, and develop it in a completely different layout. You've got all kinds of physical room. They used to actually grow food there for the incarcerated. There's a lot of things that can be done out of Division Street that no one's considered.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Lisa McShane, I just want to say that I think there's often a misconception about jails versus prison. The average length of stay in the Spokane County Jail is around 17 days per person. So it's good to have other services, but we need to be mindful that the most important service is getting in and out of the courthouse, because people on average are there for just a few days. And I totally support what Andy said about the need to be close to the hospital. People are in difficult situations physically and emotionally. And while I like the idea of land to grow fruits and vegetables for people who are in prison, which means they're there for a year or longer, jail average length of stay is 17 days. It's just not going to happen.
Radishes, maybe. Not tomatoes. Okay, okay, got that figured out? Okay, anybody else on this question? All right, uh-huh.
Thank you. I'm still Ivy Little when I'm here. The one thing, I used to be a drug and alcohol counselor. And since I was working back in '68 and on down in '83, DOTSA program was a real important program for drug and alcohol people. When they went to treatment, they had places to go. Maybe 3 of them once they stayed in these homes, which were regulated for those people to go back out in society and have a working job or education to the tech school, Whatcom Community College, any training they could get. I've noticed since that program's not here anymore, there's a big problem what to do with the people that have substance abuse, big time. Without that program, I can see a big failure, and it has been a big failure. The other thing about mental health, I don't know if people realize, but like Skagit County, my son-in-law works there. He's an RN nurse for mental health. They get calls if all over Washington State, if they don't have any room for those people to go, they're sent down to Mount Vernon. And when they get out on the street, they're stuck there. They have more mental health people walking around the streets in Mount Vernon, and a lot of people are scared. My daughter is scared when she's down there because some of them really have some violent tendency and they do need help. But that's just like not having Washington State. And I know when Washington State was closed, everything was more harder for the public with mental health. And that was a beautiful facility. I hate to see that closed down, but it did. It was real functional. And I think a lot of the mental health people came out of there and worked good in society because they had a lot of programs. You know, farming, they learned how to milk cows. They got a lot of job at farmers. They also did gardening and had greenhouses. And they also had classes of making things, clothing or whatever. And some of them became good chefs. So that was a real good, important thing for people that have problems with drugs, alcohols, because they need to be re-educated. And one of the reasons is when they're in a job they don't know how to get out of, they go to drinking and using because that's their escape. And they have a hard time trying to deal with stuff because they're self-medicating themselves. I'm glad you guys are here and trying to do something about the jail and mental health. Thank you. Oh, Carl.
Thank you so much. Okay. Did you all have another question? Sapol?
Sure. In 2004, we approved a jail tax, and that's what we used to build the interim facility division. How does that have an impact on your decision to vote for the last jail tax, knowing that that was already approved? Did that make sense? Okay.
It made sense to you, but you're kind of in the world. Okay, you're the
that's
only
true.
person, Pinky, who is nodding right now. Let me just say. Could you restate it a
I'll
little
try
more?
it again. What I heard from a lot of people in the past is that they felt like they had approved a jail tax in 2004 that should have been used for a jail, and that they were not willing to approve another jail tax because of that tax that had been previously approved. So what I'm asking is, for you, if you're willing to share, how does that tax have an impact, or does it have an impact on how you decided to vote, or how you feel about another tax or another facility?
I'll answer that in 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Not a bit.
Say why it didn't.
Why? Because I don't expect anything different from government, to be honest with you. I know the money where it went. I followed the whole thing. I'm pretty astute. I'm following politics and stuff. The bottom line is you need a new jail. We can sit and moan and complain about what other county council members did or other chief executives and on and on and on and point fingers forever. But the bottom line is that doesn't get a new jail built. And maybe cut down the size, look at some stuff that could, so it didn't cost as much, so you didn't have to ask for this large amount of money. But the bottom line is, you can't have a jail on the 3rd floor of that courthouse for another 20 years, and you guys sitting up here, or the 3 guys replacing you, asking the same questions they did 20 years ago.
Thanks. I see. Did you Your hand was up, so we'll do 1 and 2.
I'm Vern Yaden again. This is just in general, and I'm going to harp on this. Practical politics requires that you ignore some facts. The question is, what are the facts that we're going to ignore in order to solve the problems? If you try to solve all of these various ideas and put them into a grand scheme, it'll never happen. The city and county have got to get together and agree on practical political solutions, and you're going to have to ignore some of the facts to get it done.
What is your perception of what the conflict is between the city and county? You've referred to it twice, but I don't understand.
Well, I think we're back to this conflict between punishment and rehabilitation. That conundrum is as old as correctional facilities have been. When I was a chaplain's assistant in 1968 in Tennessee, it was the same question: rehabilitation or punishment. Immediately, you have to jail people that are of a harmful nature for the public safety, because the public have certain expectations for safety. And so that's what is the pressure that the public puts on the police department, the sheriff's department, is to get these people out of our community. So I think that the city wants to see a more of a comprehensive program. The county wants to, at least out here, I just want to see a jail and work on these programs as we can. But I think that when we try to solve all the problems and come up with a big comprehensive plan, it's not going to happen.
So, to clarify, you think that the city wants to get the jail out into the county? Is that no?
I think that they want a comprehensive mental alternative plan.
Okay.
And they want to keep people out of jail, and that's admirable.
So you're seeing that the people in the city or city government wants to talk about the kinds of programs, like the programs that are being spoken to tonight?
That's right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Andy Douglas, and I live in Bellingham. And in fact, I live in Bellingham in a very working class neighborhood. I live south of Bakerview, near the mall. And I'm PCO, so I doorbell, and the people in my district are desperate about their financial situation. So I don't think a new tax is very sellable in my precinct. They are really concerned about the rents. A lot of them work 2 jobs and have children. A lot of them in that area have children with disabilities. There's a lot of elderly people who are disabled. When I talk to them, they are really worried about their finances. So I think it kind of reflects your statement from earlier that it's hard to ask people who are in a desperate situation for more money. And that is, at this point, it's a real big issue in Bellingham.
Yeah. And Joy, yes, I see your hand. Yeah.
I need to know, is it 1% that you're looking for? Another percent? Perhaps to build a jail? We're not looking at anything at this point. Okay, this is a remote and minute thing perhaps, but it's your small businesses that collect your taxes. And they're the tax collector, and I'm a small business person. And I don't think anyone realizes how much tax we actually collect. So for instance, on a wage, we're collecting maybe 20% that we have to hold back and deliver to the government. And so every month, every 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we cough up that 20%, or every 3 months. Ultimately, it's 20% that we're holding back. And then on top of that, there's the sales tax that we're holding back, we collect. And I'm not sure how many small businesses have gone out of business in the past year, the past 5 years, or so on and so forth. But I have friends in business, and what's killing them is coughing that up. So, we hold on to the tax, we use that money, and then comes the day of reckoning, deliver. And a lot of people wind up being unable to deliver, and they ultimately go out of business. And so that's, and personally, what I've started doing now is every day I set the whole thing aside. And I don't think many people do that. It's very difficult to do that. And so this whole tax collection business, when we have more tax to collect, and we're collecting maybe 25% a day, you have let's say 9% on sales, 8.5%, 9% on sales, and then you have your 20% on wages, labor and industries, unemployment, federal income tax. It's a bunch of money. And it really is hard on small business to deliver that in a timely manner. It's tangential, but you should know it.
Thank you. So the question that was on the floor was whether or not a previous tax had affected your decision-making on this current one. That's the question.
Joy Gilfillan, it absolutely did. In 2010, when I first started looking at the economics of incarceration and I first started looking at the privatization of prisons, how that was affecting us in Whatcom County, because mass incarceration on a national level is caused by the increase in incarceration on the local level. So I started first, I got an intern to talk to Wendy Jones, and we got a whole bunch of statistics because we couldn't find them anywhere else. And I started analyzing the statistics of Whatcom County, the average length of stay, the amount of money we were spending, the kinds of people who were arrested, who was going in. And what I noticed was that when we passed the 2004 jail tax, and then they built the 2006 jail, what they did is they went in and they got a whole bunch of people arrested on paper warrants that were low-level offenders. And what that did is that increased the statistical rate on why we needed to project to build a huge jail in Whatcom County, and that was used as an anomaly. So I started looking at what was going on, in fact, economically, because I'm a businesswoman. And the bottom line that I figured out is that in Whatcom, so did it affect me? Absolutely it did, because it put me down a rabbit hole of economic development. And I started looking at the fact that our average length of stay in Whatcom County went from 9.7 days up to 22 days over a period of a few years here, a few decades. That's expensive when you're spending at least $100 a day county taxes just to occupy people, okay, in jail, just to hold them there. When I started looking at the way that we were managing our entire jail system, and then I started looking at what we were funding from a state level, and I started comparing Whatcom County, you might have somebody buy, on average, a bed is $30,000 or $40,000 a year that we pay in costs as a taxpayer. If those people stay in jail in Whatcom County, the probability that they're going to go on to prison down the road goes up. And then the value of that client, so to speak, goes up to $75,000 a day or more, depending on how you're measuring it and who. The cost of damage from those people actually multiplies by 11 times when you add the amount of suicides, the amount of depression, the amount of family damage that happens. And then recently what I've figured out is that it costs another $30,000 a year to the families once they get arrested and have to deal with all the fallout. See, the amount of money we're extracting from our commercial health of our community and that we're extracting from businesses is absolutely depleting and destroying our middle class. It's destroying our free enterprise system. It's actually putting our entire economy in chains. So when I did that research, Absolutely. I have been opposed to it all the way from the beginning. I also studied the CAFR reports to look at how we started using our budgets and using our money in Whatcom County. And the amount of money we spend in law and justice and continuing to fortify things is astronomical. We don't pay the money that we need to senior citizens, to recovery. This entire map is about all the things we don't provide because we take the money elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. On the question?
Yes, on the question.
Okay, great.
Absolutely, on the question. I didn't vote the last 2 times for the jail tax, and I'll tell you it swayed me, and the question was the previous tax that was already authorized by voters, did that play a part in my decision this time? And yes, it did. It did because there were too many unanswered questions for me whether jail even works. Like, what are we doing with this money, with what we're already doing here? Why are we spending money just on this? And why do we need a new one? It doesn't work. It's already clear. It's not even a question. We know that maybe the people who are not in jail are the ones who are deterred from going in, but the people who are in, the system of punishment doesn't work on at least very many people. So once I realized that, at first I really wanted the new jail. I wanted it for my clients. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I thought, geez, of course I want a new jail because this place is awful. But then when the citizens, like the citizens at the Restorative Community Coalition were speaking up, I listened. I was like, geez, they've got a point. There's just too much that doesn't add up. Why would we want to pay for something anymore that doesn't work? And yeah, the fact that the earlier tax was supposed to take care of something better and it didn't, as a citizen, I didn't want to, as a responsible voter, I didn't want to just authorize more money for if that previous inadequacy as far as a facility, I think it was a letdown to the public. If they're saying now it wasn't enough and you've already, if there was already a tax and it's still not fulfilling the need, why would taxpayers in a responsible way keep paying into that? Like, what if it happens again? I think. That's what I thought. What if this happens again? Why would we want to just keep paying for this again and again and again? You know, a voter needs to say no at some point. I'd rather not sit here and have to say this to you, come to these meetings and say that to you. It just doesn't work. It's not, the voters are saying no. They've said no 2 times now. And yeah, that's a big reason. It's just a disappointment. As a responsible voter, no, not again.
Great, thank you. Okay. Did you all have another question you'd like to ask?
One more question I'll ask.
Yeah, please.
Where do you get your source of information on topics like this? So as the county moves through other initiatives or maybe this one, what are the sources that you go to learn more about the topics to make a decision?
So sources of information. Maybe somebody who hasn't spoken yet or spoken for a while. I see your hand, Joy, but I'm just appreciate your enthusiasm. Yeah.
I'll take this one, Holly. Rebecca, Tyler, we get a lot of our, or Councilmember Byrd, sorry. We get a lot of our information, frankly, when you guys show up here. I mean, looking around the room, I'm not saying that my neighbors don't know anything about this topic, but one of the reasons I wanted to come today, more so than to speak to you folks, is listen to what my neighbors, we're very word of mouth. We're very, small, tight knit. I know that the 3 of you have made it to a number of community meetings. Kendal Watch and the Community Coalition and those types of things. I think a lot of people are getting that information there. I think people are also getting potentially misinformation from social media. It's difficult for us to know what's what. So, you know, I'm kind of nerdy and I like to read websites and I'm on all the county email lists, and so I kind of keep track of this sort of stuff. But you know, I'm interested to hear from my neighbors. With all due respect to those of you who have come to join us, I think this question is really more suited to people who live nearby here and how they get their information. And I think that to, you know, neighbors who may not have spoken this evening, this is actually a question that would be incredibly helpful, not only with this topic, but with all topics for the betterment of our community and our county.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks. I'll pick up on that. So folks who are out here in the county, especially for those who haven't spoken, how are you getting your information right now? I'm actually gonna bug you guys here in the back. So how do you get your information now?
So my name is Richard Whitson, and I do several projects out here, and you know, I honestly think had something like this happened 5 or 6 times over the last 2 votes, you would have maybe convinced a lot of people to vote otherwise. This is the first one like this I've seen, and this is how we get our information. The average citizen out there who is not involved in the criminal justice system, before tonight I had no idea that the average stay was 21 days. It was not a concern of mine. I hope to never be arrested. So, you know, I'm thinking more of if I can't supply the resources this community needs for people that are not involved in the justice system, I'm certainly not going to pass another tax to give you more money. There's 4 or 5 of us in here to spend 18 months creating our own park district because we couldn't get the county to build us one. And I thank the county for their support in that effort, and we're trying to get it funded now. But this is how we get our information, word of mouth. Whether it's accurate or not, you need to have many, many more of this type of forums. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. How about for you?
My smartphone, the news, newspaper.
Uh-huh. How about for you?
Rebecca Can. I agree with Richard. It's word of mouth. That's the only reason I heard about what this was. And other than that, I had no idea that this meeting was even going on. So just talking to people in the community, that's it.
Okay, I have to ask, how many of you actually even saw the poster? Raise your hand if you saw the poster. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. So a couple of you saw it. That's not too, well, how many, stop, put your hands down. How many East County people saw the poster? Okay, and you guys are here at the community center all the time. All right, that gives us some information. All right, anybody else East County want to share? All right, other questions? Yep, we'll do a wrap. Okay, I want to wrap by starting with this. I loved it that there were kids here. Thank you. And even though you didn't say anything on the mic, I hope you write things down on those surveys because, you know, I'm really interested personally in just hearing what you think. And I'm sure everybody else is too. Yes? Yes? We want to hear from you. And I especially want to thank our council members and our sheriff who've come to every session and listened with such care for everybody's words. And so I know this is going to be untoward, but we should give them applause, I think. Can we not? This really was a big effort on their part. Thank you, guys. Okay. Get it?
Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's really important to us to hear our community's feelings about this. We've been at this now for 14 weeks, every other week, and we've learned a lot, and it's just means so much to get out and engage the public and to hear, you know, in your own community, you know, your neighbors, as was mentioned before by this gentleman. Hearing things from your neighbors is important. And again, we thank you for being here, and we're going to adjourn this meeting now. Thank you.